All right, so we've been doing a lot of talking lately about interracial relationships and families, and we wanted to take a little bit of a sidestep and talk more on the blended side. So step-parent, step-child relationships, and maybe how that looks. For those of you that might not know, our oldest is 9 and he was 2 when we got married. He sees his dad on a regular basis, his biological dad, and then he's with us more of the time. So
we're definitely a mixed and a blended family. I've got a blonde-haired, blue-eyed son. Love it.
All right, we need to stop right here and address something, okay? Y'all probably seen the stray hair. And we're in the car, we're traveling, okay? And I just pulled up the video that we shot, and it's like, that's there, all right? Look, if you can't handle it, dip out the video. This ain't the one. Or some suggestions might be to open up another tab and do some internet browsing as you watch that, because it's distracting to me. It might be distracting to you, but didn't have a chance to reshoot. It was either put it up the way it is or not put it up at all. And so anyway, just a little PSA. I get it. If you don't watch the rest from here, it's all right. We love you still.
So, good kid. It's wonderful. It's a good situation. We try to make the best of it. The reason this came up is one of the subscribers, one of you commented in one of our videos and asked really how we go about it, because it is a different dynamic, and kind of understanding how we discipline and how we go about it has been something that we've had to work at.
100%. Discipline, I think, is one of the harder things, especially, I think it's hard differently for each person. But from my point of view, I was a single mom. It was just me and my son against the world, and I was very protective of him. And so when Bedford and I got married, or even when we were dating, it was kind of hard for me to allow him to discipline Jackson anyway. I do want to say that, there's no discipline that I think is necessarily spanking, not spanking, whatever.
You do you. We don't care. We don't care.
Yeah, there's not, it's just any type of discipline, regardless of whether it was like putting him in a timeout, even telling him no, was really hard for me because I still felt very protective of him. And it was hard. It was easier for me to put my wall down to him than to let my wall down for my son to him. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's different on his side.
So I think, at the beginning it was really unique because I had to pick and choose and to kind of determine like where in the world my spot was. And I think we had a conversation. You remember that?
A lot.
We had and we'll kind of get into that. But I remember we had one conversation specifically about, hey, I asked her, I want to do it, just throw it out there. Like, where do you want my place to be? Right? So I recognize that biologically this is not my son, but if we're really going to make this work and if we're really going to be married, he's going to be my son, right? We can't just have these ideas and these lines. And if we were going to have those lines, I wanted to have that conversation and know where that was right off the bat. Remember talking about that?
Yeah. I think that it's important, especially on my part, as the biological parent in the scenario, to understand that I'm asking a lot of him. I'm asking him to be financially responsible for our oldest son. I'm asking him to love him the same as my other children. That's another question that kind of comes up sometimes is the love the same between your biological children that you share and then your biological child that he shares with you. And so I'm asking, absolutely, and I ask that of him. I want to make sure that he's treated the same, but he's financially responsible for him. He is responsible for his emotional well-being. He's responsible for making sure that he's clothed, that there's a roof over his head. He takes care of him. He helps him with his homework. He does all of these things. And those are expectations as a parent. And so it's not fair or right to expect all of those things, but then withhold the ability to be the disciplinarian as well. And it was a hard line for me to figure out, but I think that we're getting there. I think it's getting a little bit better.
We're getting there. And so it's something that we definitely have a conversation about often. And it's not only because, Jax is technically a stepson. We don't call him that. He's my son. He's my son. But I think also, quite frankly, we have both two different styles of discipline and two different levels, right? I'm the iron fist in the house. That's the way it works out. and mom's not so much. Okay, mom's a little bit softer, and so oftentimes we have that conversation like, hey, is this too soft? Is this too hard? And as we've grown, or as our kids have grown, I'll admit that I'm probably faster to require or expect more of our kids for their age than maybe mom is, right?
Right.
And so I'll be like, hey, yo, Jax is 9, Riker is 6. You know, he needs to be able to do this and that, or Maya needs to start. Hey, the girl's a little bit different. Yeah. It's a little bit different. I have a hard time with them, but even still, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
No, I discipline them still. Yeah. One time, just like
one time. You know, if you know, you know.
Look, they're my little princesses.
What do the kids say? I-K, what? Never mind. I-Y-K, I-Y-K. If you know, you know. That's what
I have never heard that.
I have to look it up every time I see it.
I-Y-K, I-Y-K.
If you know, you know.
Nah, Pusha T said that.
Okay, but...
That's a good album.
Alright, anyways.
Anyway. So I tend to be a little bit more with the boys. Caveat. I tend to be a little bit more hard on them. A little harsher. Want them to get to a spot where I can trust them in the decision-making process. Specifically... Jackson Riker, because I believe that they're going to be accountable for making sure their sisters are safe. On the other hand, I do believe, my mom might be a little bit tougher on the girls, just a little bit, but I think it's not near as big the gap as with the boys.
I think it's interesting because we did go through a little bit of a phase when we only had both of the boys, where I was still feeling pretty protective of Jax, but I was really hard on Riker. And then I think that Bedford was trying to overcompensate for how hard I was on Riker and for maybe how much easier I was on Jax. So he was more lenient on Riker and harder on Jax. And it was almost like we had picked sides, and it was really unhealthy.
You had to work through that.
It was tough. Really unhealthy. From what I've heard, it's common when you are blending families, you have biological children together, but you are also sharing a child with other parents. From what I've read and from what I've heard, that happens. But we saw it happen to us, where it was almost as though it was Bedford and Riker versus me and Jax. And whenever Jax and Riker would fight, I was always Team Jax. He was always Team Riker, because we were overcompensating for each other. And I think that that's common, but it was something where we had to sit down and say, this is our issue. This is something that we have a problem with. And we don't want to pick sides or take teams. Like, this is our family is our team. And we need to make sure that we have an open mind and an open heart and all of those things towards every situation and each child individually. So
I think, again, we're not perfect, not at all, in any way, shape, or form. I think the only thing that we do pretty exceptionally well is we are open about having a lot of different and difficult conversations. It's something that we do have often, and because of that, we've been able to kind of grow and work. And I could imagine, especially the specific situation where we kind of almost had squatted up or had sides, that would 100% divided and destroyed our family had we not addressed it when we addressed it, and then took action on making sure that we communicated first and we asked specific questions, and then we let one or the other handle the situation as needed.
I think that it's interesting because when it comes to the interracial aspect or the blended aspect of our family, I think a lot of the conversations that we have, it would be easy to just avoid the tension and kind of just circle around those issues.
Yeah.
But I think that is something that we do really well, is we say, okay, this is an issue. It's something that we need to just talk about. And I'm not saying that all those conversations go well. There's been conversations.
Or that it's solved on the first one even.
No, we've had some of the same conversations over and over and over, because it needs to get fixed. We need to correct certain areas. And so, I think that I think it's because we would handle things differently, and I think everyone's like that. So, I think that is something that has created at least a good environment for us, and
synergy, if you will. We know that we want to work through it. We know we've worked through things before, and so it does give us a little bit more. The barrier to have tough conversation over the years has gone way down.
Right.
So we have those a lot.
I agree. And I think that over time they've become less and less uncomfortable as well. I think,
and quite a bit less intense.
Yes. I mean, in the beginning it was I don't think either of us really wanted to bend. I don't think anybody wanted to change. There was a point where I went to Bedford and I said, I am feeling like maybe you don't love Jax the same. And I just am going to come out and say, as a parent, a single parent going into a new relationship, that's your biggest fear, is that your new spouse or their family or whatever isn't going to love your child the same as whatever you create together. I remember when I got pregnant with Riker, our first together, it was like a bittersweet feeling, because I felt like we had been doing everything just the three of us, and Jax was his family's only grandchild. And so I was like, am I ruining it? Am I going to ruin this? And I think that that's a common feeling. I think it's normal to feel that way. And there have been points where I've had to say, because you have to acknowledge that the reality that they are different. Jax never wanted to cuddle Bedford. There was years and years where it was just slap in the face after slap in the face. Bedford would do so much for him, but he wouldn't cuddle him, wouldn't say I love you, didn't want to spend time with him, and it was hard. It's hard to not ever see him on Father's Day, or to have Daddy Donut Day come up and he doesn't get to go. Those are hard things.
I think the roughest one is when I was able to go, and he was like, oh, I wish my dad was here. And it was like,
dang it.
Taxes say that I am.
It's a stab after a stab after a stab. And I think that it can create tension in their relationship. And so it is easier for him to have a more seamless relationship with our biological children. The relationship that he has with Jax is something that he has to work at, and Jax has to work at every single day, all day long. And so there have been times where I've had to say, is something going on? I feel like your relationship with Jax is getting a little bit rough, or maybe you're distancing yourself. And then but that's the thing, is he's very open about saying, I didn't notice. I will be better.
There'll be times, there's been times where it was like, I didn't notice. And then there's been times where I had to kind of step back and say, hey, Chelsea, I don't feel like I have the same parenting pull.
Correct.
I don't feel like I'm actually raising this child. Like, he's technically my kid, but he's not really my kid right now.
And it's because I wasn't letting him.
And so it was one of those, I'm seeing a lot of behaviors maybe that I wouldn't accept from Riker, and I would correct from Riker. And I didn't feel like I had the ability to do so. And I remember we had the same conversation. Like, hey, this isn't, you're distancing yourself. And I'm like, I think it's because I don't feel like a parent.
And that's
at
hard.
The same time, you don't feel like a parent. You're not getting into the benefits of a parent and really all the negatives.
You have all the expectations of a parent. And again, that's where we circle back to, if he was to come to me and say, well, he's not really my kid, so I'm only going to provide for the other three, I would say, no, he's your kid. You're going to take care of him. But then in the same sentence, turn around and say, don't you dare tell him that he's grounded. You can't have that. There has to be a balance there. Of course, we have we're lucky enough to have an amicable relationship with Jax's dad, to the point where we can have amicable conversations. It's not super smooth all the time, but we've worked
at having... Not besties.
No, not
We had 2 birthdays.
Hey. I knew someone who their ex would come over for breakfast every Sunday, and I was like, not there. Don't think I'm going to get there.
Nah.
But we're still really blessed in the fact that we are able to have conversations with his dad, and we include his dad on a lot of conversations that, if something's happening in our house, we have his dad say, hey, this is what's going on here. Are you seeing the same thing? And I think it even helps us as a couple to maybe feel like we have because sometimes when you only see your child every other week, or, he's gone every other weekend, you don't really get a full scope of maybe how he's feeling or what's going on in his life. So I think it gives us a little bit of a better handle on things, but to have a decent relationship with his dad helps us.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think what would you recommend for maybe someone who just got married and has a stepchild?
Oh, go for it. You're married, you're in it, have the conversations. You're feeling something, and and this is where I think I made the mistake. Like, I was feeling disconnected, and I knew why I felt disconnected, but I was like, well, I'm just going to push through it. Not like everybody knows, everybody feels it. So have the conversations, talk about what's going on, talk about what your struggles are, but go in it in good faith, knowing that you're here trying to fix something rather than just complain, moan, and destroy the house. Like, go in there, let's say, hey, let's fix this. What can we do to make it better? Come up with a solution, try it. If you need to revamp it, do so. And that's something that we've done. That is the best advice I could possibly give.
I think the best advice I could give someone who is getting married and has children from a previous relationship is to be open-minded to the fact that this person, you are asking so much from this person. You're asking them to love your children. You're asking them to take care of them, to care for them exactly the same way that they would if they were their biological child, that they had given, been at the birth for. You want all the same things, and yet at the same time, some of the control that you have as a single parent is really hard to let go. So it is in the best interest of your relationship to respect them as an equal partner in your child's life. Like, they are a parent figure, and as a parent figure, they deserve the rights of a parent. Obviously, there's lines, okay? Obviously, you need to make sure that your child is safe, all of those things. But if you would allow it with their own child, then, you have to be fair. So it is in the best interest of your family and your relationship and your future for you to relinquish that control, because if you love them, you need to know they have the best interest of your child in mind. So
anyway, just a couple of thoughts for today. Thank you for that comment. Hopefully this answers some additional questions that you may, or hopefully it answers the questions that you have. Let us know if you have additional questions. We are always open to kind of share what we found works. Unless we're not open to, and then we'll just tell you, hey, we're not talking about that. But most of the time,
won't happen.
Yeah, we're an open book. But like, subscribe, comment. We really appreciate all of those who have joined our channel. It's grown
so much, actually.
It's grown. We hit the 250 mark,
What?
and that's really not a whole lot, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Yep.
Anyway.
Appreciate you.